Welcome everybody to Astrology Unplugged. I am Rick DiClemente. We're now recording and it'll be posted on YouTube as it is usually on Fridays. I'm glad to have you tonight. If you're joining us for the first time, this is about episode something like 133, and you could go to my page on YouTube, Rick DiClemente, and see all the past versions. We're really going to be 3 years old in November, I think. Or is it September? No, it's August 18th. August 18th, we will be 3 years on here. And nobody's thrown us off yet. That's pretty good. I was going to talk tonight, and I'm going to talk later about relationships and the nature, the interrelationships of them. A lot of times I run out of ideas because I've done this so long, and I go back through my past newsletters and get some ideas. And I was about to do that, and I realized, let me check this one phone here. We're getting, I need to mute the phones. Okay. Anyhow, I get ideas from the, with my mouse. Huh. Huh. Mercury retrograde. There we go. All right. Anyhow, I get ideas that preempted. And when I saw this lunar eclipse this week, this super powerful lunar eclipse, and you see how we are as earthlings here, subject to the media, you hear nothing about this. Some people called it a full moon. Well, it is a full moon. All lunar eclipses are full moons, and all solar eclipses are new moons. But this is an extremely powerful one. You hear nothing about it because you can't see it. It's got nothing to do with whether you can see it. It's got to do with what sign it's in, what aspects is it making to the outer planets, what is it hitting in your chart or somebody else's chart, what signs it in. That's what makes them heavy duty or not. It has nothing to do with a red moon. It's a harvest moon. It's this moon, a cement moon. And you look at it and it's pretty and it shines and it's big. You know, I couldn't believe my ears today. I'm not going to mention his name, but I saw a text on Facebook today by one of the world's greatest astrologers ever. Brilliant. And he's trying to analyze what's going on today. And he's doing it with Saturn and Pluto, etc. And he didn't even mention Eris. I just could not believe what I was reading. What's happening now is because of Eris. I went for 5 years, I told you, rubbing my chin. I've done this 41 years, and I've always kept my finger pretty much on what's going on. A couple curveballs. And I told you the last 5 years, I kept telling my partner, Liza, I don't know what's going on. I don't know. And that's because I was watching Pluto, watching Saturn. And up crept Eris. And she's the story. Let me tell you briefly why. Eris is about, if I've not been counted, damn it, I want to be counted. I'm mad. I don't care what it takes. I'm going to be counted. This spirit hit us collectively when it brought forth the Tea Party, when it brought forth Trump, etc. And it has a negative side, which means I'm going to be counted no matter what. I don't care what happens to you. And then there's a positive side, which is the Me Too, and I want to come forth and I want to be heard. And Eris is all about you're going to play fair. No, you're not going to skip the line. No, you're not going to get that job ahead of me when you don't deserve it. That's why everything's changing. Now you add Pluto to the mix and then you'll see what's happening. Let's take a look at yesterday's eclipse. Let's take a look at, it was in, when it's lunar, the sun is always in the month that you're in, and the moon is always opposite, okay? So we are in Cancer. The full moon or the lunar eclipse was in Capricorn. So Here's the exact moment of the eclipse in Pittsburgh, anyway. And you can see that the sun was at 24 and the moon was at 24, eclipsing. And immediately, my mind goes 24, 24. Why? Because that's where Pluto and Saturn are having it out. 24 cardinal. You got to get yourself memorized. What are the cardinal signs? You got to know it. Aries, Libra, Capricorn, Cancer. You got to know it. Okay? Fixed signs. Leo, Aquarius, Taurus, Scorpio. Mutable signs. Virgo, Pisces, Gemini, Sag. You got to think like this. Okay, I'm still getting some static somewhere. It's probably from a telephone. Anyhow, we'll go back to the chart. No, I'm still getting. Somebody is not muted. It's a 515 number. Now we're okay. All right. Now, back at the chart, you see one of the reasons it's so hard to read an eclipse chart is there's too many planets. There's 10 planets. There's the North Node. There's Eris. There's Chiron. Okay, that's 11 bodies to think of. And the real action's going on here at 24, 24. Okay, now what I'm telling you is what matters here is the Pluto-Saturn. Saturn is going back and forth. These two are going to join up. Saturn every 28 years. Every 28 years. Saturn's catching up with Pluto in Capricorn. And then, while all that's going on, the United States birth chart in 1776, the United States Pluto is at 26. Right here. So in the United States history, Pluto's gone all the way around, all 250 some years. And Pluto's about to return. And when it returns, Saturn's going to be with it. And, oh, by the way, here's Eris at a right angle. I mean, the first thing you have to say as an astrologer to the gods is, are you joking? And the gods answer back, no. This is very severe. Now, one of the ways that we can make it simpler for you is to take off these inner planets. The inner planets move fast. Saturn's 28 years around. Pluto's 256 years around. Eris is 540 years around. Eris is going to be in Aries for 120 years. So these are the ones that matter when you talk about impact through the ages. And when you read your little horoscope in the Cosmopolitan Lover section, you're reading about Venus for a couple of days. You're reading about the moon for a couple hours. You're reading about Mars for 2 or 3 days. They make sense if you're following in the daily newspaper, har, har, har. Okay? That's about how important they are. The big planets are what caused the shift. Why are we no longer in Nazi Germany? Somebody keeps turning their mute button off. Let me see if I can find out what this is. I think it's my own computer doing it. All right. So when you look at it this way, watch this. I'm going to take this chart and I'm going to change what's being displayed. I'm going to change to a set that I made before we came on the air tonight. Okay, do you see what I did? I took out the inner planets. The inner planets move too slowly and therefore are not that critical. Now, Saturn is pretty important. Jupiter can make things happen. Mars can make things happen. But these outer planets, these are the ones that set up the eras. Now, Pluto has been in Capricorn since 2008. So it's been in this Capricorn stage for 11 years now. We got 4 more. Saturn has been here about 1.5 years. Saturn's got about 9 months to go till it joins up with Pluto. The story on this chart is Saturn and Pluto, and Uranus just came about in 2005. Okay, I'm sorry. Eris. I could even take Uranus off here. The story here is Saturn, Pluto, and Eris. The current eclipse that we just had, the sun was at 24 of Capricorn. The moon was at 24 of Cancer. So everybody writes articles, oh, the moon's in Cancer, oh, the moon's in Cancer. Oh, but what they're not noticing is both of them are squaring Eris. 24 Aries is the story. 24 Aries plus some is the story. Don't you notice that the world is in a position like, we've never been saying like this before. What the hell's going on? What's going on? Even for weirdos, this is weird. It's because Eris and Pluto, forget Saturn, Eris and Pluto are very similar energies. They take no prisoners. Remember, Pluto's job is get with evolution or else we get rid of you. Eris's job is, I will do whatever it takes to make it fair. That's pretty heavy duty. Put the two together. This is why you keep seeing poll after poll after poll after poll after poll, and some groups in the election, Pluto trine to Neptune is very minor comparatively. It's important, but it's the trine gets overwhelmed very easily by the square. Let's take a look at that. My mouse stops working again. Mercury retrograde's having a lot of fun with me. Okay, the Neptune is not a trine. The Neptune is a sextile. The sextile is 3 degrees. That is not a trine. The sextile is very minor compared to the power of a trine. All right, I don't know what's going on here. All right. So, there are really very little differences between Pluto and Eris. There are very little differences. They're both universal. They're both affecting the collective. This is why you're seeing the revolution going on in Puerto Rico. You saw what I just posted on Facebook about the people flipping out in Ireland. You saw what's going on with the EU and with Brexit and all. These revolutions are taking place everywhere. They just don't consider it fair anymore for the 1% to have all the money, no one else have it. Now, this is the same argument back in ancient Greece. But they're not going to put up with it anymore because Eris is here. She's never been here before. We didn't know about her before. Yes, Puerto Rico too. Yes, of course. All throughout. That's why it's getting scary, but it's also pressing us to find new solutions. Well, new solutions is easy to say, isn't it? It's easy to say. So one of the funny things about you have to look at Eris. They say that Eris, in some fashion, is the ruler of Libra. And that's like an ultra ruler beyond what native Venus is. And remember, Libra is a sign that's obsessed with fairness and equality. And so is Eris. But what happens when you put Eris in Aries? Eris has been in Aries since 1921. Do you think Aries is a real fair sign? It's not. They're not really consciously greedy or selfish, but they don't consciously think about the us. That's a Libra thing. So you got the Eris. It's hard, confusing to say these names. You got Eris in Aries squaring Pluto in Capricorn, which is all about the collective. So that's why a lot of people are taking the Eris energy and emitting the shadow side. Because what does it mean about me? How come I've not been counted? And that's what a lot of Trump followers are doing. For whatever reason, they just think that he's out front battling for them. He'll screw them the second he can. And we all know it. Okay, so that's why when I saw this article by this incredibly published and talented astrologer, he's trying to explain the current state of affairs with Saturn and Pluto, forget it. I mean, I don't know it all, but I know that. It's Pluto and it's Eris, and they're going to be squaring each other for a long time, which means as they go on, we will get used to it more and more, and we will be trying to grab the people that are being pushed aside to the shadow side and influence them to be into the positive side, because the positive side is very beautiful. You know, I've got a really powerful Eris in my chart, and I've always wondered why I've always been so obsessed with fairness. It's not my Capricorn nature. It's I got Jupiter and Eris at the same degree. So I can't even analyze my Jupiter because it's got Eris on it. But anyhow, you'll need to look at yours. And in most of our cases, our Erises are back around 6 degrees of Aries. If you're born in the 60s, maybe 8 degrees of Aries in that area. Okay, so that's what I wanted to talk to you about that. Now, what does it mean? Well, you got the seriousness of Pluto augmented by the approach of Saturn, and now the square of Eris. This is why the planet's being threatened. So I think it's very simple. The planet is being threatened. We're going to do something or it's going to go down. Isn't that how it looks? Now, what I was thinking recently is I'm not bright enough. I'm not big enough to say that's a bad thing. I don't know what's best for the planet. Maybe it's best for the planet to get rid of us. I don't know. All I know is we have to act with love and intention and do the best we can every day, right? And we just keep doing it. So let's get off of that. Let's talk about fun things instead. Let's talk about relationships. What I wanted to talk to you tonight about relationships when it first came to me. Oh, exciting. Get this. Next week, it's about mapping and tapping. Next week's show is about tapping and mapping, which I'll explain to you. Not as an expert. I know a good bit about tapping, and I've done some mapping, but I'm going to explain to you both. It's going to be a half an hour of each. I'm going to explain what tapping is, how it's being used for maybe 30, 40 years, and mapping, which is about 20-some years. And it's pretty interesting stuff. Mapping and tapping. Tonight, relationships. That's about begging. I was just wondering if I could get Dr. Kim's reaction. That's about begging. Oh, honey, please. What I've learned an awful lot by reading Stephen Arroyo. Because Stephen Arroyo is a retired Libra, fabulous astrologer. And what I mean by fabulous is he tested what he said with real people. He didn't just give you theory. There are a lot of theoretical astrologers, and you can read that till your brain turns blue. But unless you test it with real people in the real world, you don't have a lot of credibility, in my opinion. Well, Arroyo does, because he will tell you what it means. He will tell you what usually happens. That's why he's so great. He'll take the theory, but then he'll apply it to, he's a specialist with couples, relationships. I highly recommend, even though it's elementary, I highly recommend the book 30 years ago that Arroyo wrote on relationships. It'll really give you the gusto there. And one of the things that he teaches, and I think I've learned so much from him, I don't know what's him and what's me anymore. It doesn't matter. there's compatibility. And that's what most people think astrology is about. And it's not. Am I compatible with that guy? Hey, am I compatible with her? Hey, man, what's compatible with my sign? I mean, it's the most irritating question in the world. But it's understandable, isn't it? Sells a lot of magazines. One of the main things you see in astrology is complementary. People are together because their planets complement each other. That's very common. And then there's this thing called uncompatible or non-compatible. And that's pretty clear. Now, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up my teaching zodiac. Let me go get that. If my mouse decides it's going to work tonight. Okay, there we go. All right, let's see what we're going to do here. Bear with me for a second. I'll be right back. Okay, teaching zodiac. All right. We're going to do a lot with the teaching zodiac. I think I need a new battery. I think that's what's happening. Yeah, I am going to pause and get a new battery. We're resumed. Oh, good. We're back to it. Okay, so you got compatible, non-compatible, and you got where they're complementary. Okay, now I'm going to use this. You've seen this many times. I've done much teaching with this. And you can see this is a very good teaching tool. I used something like this and took it apart and put it in the exquisite zodiac. All right. When you talk about compatibility, okay, the odd signs are the masculine signs. Every other sign, everything always starts with Aries. Aries, Gemini, Leo, Libra, Sag, Aquarius are the odd numbered signs. They are the masculine signs. In general, those signs are extroverted. The opposite for the even numbers. Taurus, Cancer, Virgo, Scorpio, Capricorn, Pisces. Even numbers are feminine. They are generally receptive or more introverted. Okay, in general, okay, now don't freak out if I say the sign of your husband or your wife and it's not a match and you lose your mind, okay? In general, we don't get along with signs next door to us. Let's assume we're looking at an Aries tonight. Aries does not get along in general with the signs next door. They're not in the same mode. They're not in the same element. That's one of the reasons. If you're talking about a Cancer, usually Cancers don't do well with Geminis or Leo. They're too fiery. They're not feeling enough for the Cancer. Okay? If you're talking about a Scorpio, the sign next door, the Libra and the Sag, usually problematic. Now, one reason that they can get along, now follow this. One reason that breaks up these kind of rigid rules is it's very common to have Mercury and Venus in signs next to you. Mercury can only be 3 places. Everybody's Mercury that ever lived who's a Sagittarius, every Sag forever has had Mercury in Scorpio and Sag or Capricorn, because Mercury is closer to the sun than we are. So it can only cover so much width. Mercury can only be 3 places. So you might say to yourself, I'm a Leo, I don't get along with Cancer, and you find out that the Cancer person you talk about has their Mercury in Leo. That will help. Do you see? Now, the next stage, the other planets are all different. The next planet that's like that is Venus. Venus can only be 5 places. And it was the battery, so that's good to know. All right. All right. If you are an Aquarian, your Mercury can only be in the same sign or one next to or 2 away. So if you're an Aquarian, all Aquarians ever have Venus here, or Venus here, or Venus here, or Venus here, or Venus there. All of them. Now, when it comes to Mars and everybody else, the rules go out the window. It can be anywhere. All right? In general, let's go back to our Aries. In general, we don't get along well with signs that are next door to us or at a right angle to us. Cancer, Capricorn. And that's why it's so important for you to learn the mode. This is the cardinal mode. Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn. It's really critical that you know the mode, because when planets transit, they have a habit of hitting something opposite, or hitting something left or right. That's the biggies in astrology. A conjunction, an opposition, or a square. That's why the modes are so important that you memorize. So in general, if you are a Gemini, you're not going to get along well with the ones next to you. You're not going to get along with the ones at a right angle, Virgo and Pisces. Here's an example why. Why does the Gemini not get along with the Virgo? I'm using this term very broadly, of course. Because the Gemini wants to be mercurial and treat things intellectually lightly. And the Virgo takes everything mentally very seriously. This matters. This is a big deal. You know, this, don't tell me this doesn't matter. This does matter. Okay? Why do you see Virgos having trouble with Sagittarians? Because the Sagittarius can be flippant because they don't worry about stuff. And Virgo's not a flippant sign. Now, the one caveat to this is planets that are opposite each other. They're usually very compatible. All right? It's not, I'm sorry. They're not compatible, they're complementary. Now, one of the main things you're going to see astrologically when you do it with real people and you see their charts, not what Dell Horoscope says or the newspaper, opposing signs are very attracted to each other because the other one has what you don't. And what's really critical, see, you're learning from experience, not from books. What's really critical in astrological relationships is the moon. The moon is a big deal. That's why if you look at people, wherever your moon is, this is why, for instance, we have Susan with us. Susan is a Sag with a moon in Gemini. This is why she may feel that Gemini is not a good match for her, but she may end up with all kind of friends with moon in Gemini or sun in Gemini because it's fun like Sag is. The real reason that opposing signs are so compatible is because they're complementary. The main one, Aries, needs its Libra-ness. Libra needs its Aries-ness. The main opposition in the zodiac, without a doubt, is Virgo-Pisces. The Virgo's real picky, the Pisces isn't. You see Virgos married to Pisces all the time because they're complementary. The Virgo gets all uptight, the Pisces calms him down. The Pisces takes everything so lightly when a train's heading right towards them, and the Virgo says, we better move. So they are very complementary. This is one of the big things in astrology. And the reason the moon is so important, the moon is what you're comfortable with. It is what you are comfortable. For you grammar freaks. Your moon is really, really powerful, and it's really irrational. You don't know why. You ever see two people together and they seem so different and you go, wow, and then you look at their moons and you see why, and they just don't look compatible, but their moons are. Their moons are trine to each other, their moons are sextile to each other. They each have the moon in the other person's sun placement. Really, really a deep science. Chart synastry is very, very difficult because you have to be an expert at weighting things. So the moon is really important because that person has an energy that I'm comfortable with. Likewise, you ever sit with somebody you just can't be with? You just can't do it. You don't know why. You just can't do it. And that's what muggles say. I'm not sure what the reason is, but we can't do it. Well, astrologers are not muggles. Astrologers are not muggles. They know why. Okay? So in general, harmonious aspects take place along the 6 to the even-numbered axis. Take a look here. Let's say you are a Scorpio. A Scorpio will be harmonious with every other sign, with the other even-numbered sign, Capricorn, with the Pisces, with the Taurus, with the Cancer, with the Virgo. They're all twos. They're all feminine. In general, they're harmonious, okay? Because they have similar compatibility elements. Okay, in the elements of fire, earth, air, water, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, fire combines with air. It doesn't combine with earth, and it sure doesn't combine with water. So in astrology, every other one gets along. Earth gets along with water because you can picture water and you can picture a puddle. The earth provides a bowl-shaped home that contains the water. You'll actually see this with people. You'll actually see an intellectual, a watery person, and the trouble with watery persons is they can just go all over the place and get lost because their emotions take them everywhere. And you will very commonly see Taurus is married to Cancers because the Taurus contains them. After a while, the Cancer might say, you're strangling me, you're containing me too much. But when the Taurus is gone, the watery sign just evaporates. And likewise, the earth sign gets too dry without the water sign there. It's very elemental. Now go with air and fire. I don't have to tell you about that, do I? Take out the air, the fire goes out. They excite each other. Well, the water signs and the earth signs don't want to be excited. The air signs and the fire signs, they want to be excited. Now remember, we're only talking about one aspect. So for instance, my brother, Pisces with 5 planets in Aries. This is not uncommon. God bless his soul. He was an Aries, he was a Pisces. He had 5 planets in Aries. So he was very fiery. But he was always off by himself, quiet unto himself. That was the Pisces. See, that's why you've got to do so many charts, because when you just do a couple, you don't know how to weight what you're seeing. Well, this is here, and that's there. I don't know. That's why you got to do chart after chart after chart. Then you get a sense. A lot of times I do people, if they have a nice scattering of their planets, they're well balanced. The woman I was talking about earlier that may be diagnosed with MS, age 28, she's got 6 planets in Capricorn in the 12th house. 6. And they're both being transited by Saturn and Pluto now. I've been watching her since she was an infant, wondering how she's going to deal with 6 planets there. But in her particular year, there were 4 planets traveling through Capricorn, and along came the sun and moon or Venus, whatever. There's 6 of them. So in general, now let's talk about details now. In astrology, so many planets can be a showstopper. I once had a girlfriend, and I was Mars-Neptune in air, very intellectual. She was Mars-Neptune, she was Mars-Uranus in cardinal, but they were right angles. You don't want your Mars at right angles. That means that not only what you do, I don't like it, that means what you do gets in my way. Right? The way you do things. Mars. So what she did was chaotic to me. And what I did was to relax for her, to pastoral. I don't know, didn't excite her enough. When you deal with the zodiac, you're dealing with synastry. You're dealing with 5 personal planets: the sun and moon, Mercury, Venus, and Mars. And you got to have a healthy Venus-Mars. If you don't have a healthy Venus-Mars, you don't know how to go get what you need, and you don't know how to accept what's being given to you. Your Venus is yin, your Mars is yang. So you can have an incompatible sun and moon, and you might have perfectly blended Venus and Mars. That really helps. Now, not only do these planets represent the source of this harmony or disharmony, but when they're triggered, what do you think happens? Say one of you got a moon in Sag, the other one has a moon in Virgo. The rest of the chart's pretty good. One's got a moon in Sag, one's got a moon in Virgo. Well, they're not comfortable with each other, essentially, because one is like, hey, let it go, don't worry about it. And one's, I'm not right unless that pillow's on this couch exactly right to the centimeter. Right? That's it. Well, you might put up with it for a while. What do you think happens the night a full moon hits that spot? I've been meaning to talk to you about this. You see the point? So don't jive yourself. Don't just go to some website and read the output of how you get along with Martha, or Martha gets along with Billy Bob. Don't do it. You need an expert astrologer. It's really hard to do. And I'm not going to lie to you, some astrologers charge heftily, and they will double it if you want synastry done. They will double the price of the study they have to do, because they have to look. You've seen the charts, the Mercury square to the Mercury trine to the Mercury. They have to study all this. Sometimes, if there's not enough squares and there's not enough disharmony, you don't get along because you don't interest each other. See, Arroyo's really good. Really good, because he goes on his, he's got that Neptune right on his descendant. He's got Sun Neptune right there, born in the late 40s. He's got a lot of Scorpio in him. He's a Libra, but he's got that sense. He can just sense things which you can't buy. Well, what do you do? What do you do if the other person's Pluto's opposite your sun? Well, first of all, you don't freak out, because everybody in his class has their Pluto opposite your sun. It's generational. See? What do you do if it's Jupiter or Saturn? Well, then you could have problems, because Jupiter is like one sign per year. So you want to look at everything that's involved, and that's why some astrologers will charge you double if you really want synastry. Now, the really neat thing is this. I've talked about this before. See, Arroyo doesn't BS. He's very kind. He's got a lot of charm. He's very tactful Libra. But he says the first thing you look for is, what is each person's ability to have a relationship? You're all into, well, the problem is we're not compatible. Well, maybe that's not the problem. Okay? Maybe you had 9 relationships in a row and they all failed because you were greedy. Maybe you had 6 in a row and you had bad judgment. Well, you think that chart compatibility is going to help you? Arroyo's exactly right. Now, most people can get along pretty good with most people, and most people have a little bit of a problem with certain things. You know, we're human. All right? So the number one thing I do with codependency is somebody just wrote there, for you people listening on YouTube, we are able to us live here, we're able to chat with each other through a secret little chat box. If you would like to join us live any Thursday to do so, please go to starself.com/unplugged, or just simply go into Google, type in Astrology Unplugged, and it will give you the link to join us Thursday nights at 8 o'clock Eastern. Linda didn't know this because she came on late. I'm reducing the show from tonight on. It'll be 1 hour instead of an hour and a half. Okay, so we have to do things a little quicker. But I'm finding an hour and a half to be a little tedious and a little bit too long. Okay, now, so Arroyo says, and I'm not leaning heavily on him because it's comfortable, because he's the best. That's why. He's the expert with relationships. What if if you don't have the ability to have a relationship for whatever reason, what's the difference if you're compatible? You're going to fight less? You're going to use your knife less than usually? What does it mean? And as A Course in Miracles will talk about, and I refer to so much, and Linda just mentioned codependency. Codependency, or being special in the other person's eyes, is the #1 problem. I just had at least 2 to 4 times a week I'm dealing with a client, and they want to know, how am I going to get this new car? How am I going to get this job? Well, I just lost this girl. How am I going to get this new girl? Okay, when did you see her coming? When did you see her coming? Well, I don't see her coming. What I see is, are you done with the codependent syndrome or not? I mean, I watched so many shows. He was a good Christian woman. He was a good Christian man. And now he's complete because he's got somebody to spend his life with. I mean, such wrong thinking. Someone's going to come and fill in my holes. This is just wrong thinking. And I don't want to be alone and miserable. And it is really charming to see people married for 75 years. But I'm not BSing anymore either. There's only one purpose to this life, which is to go back to God where you came from. And I'm not going to sit here and advocate you get an Ozzie and Harriet partner, stay with you for 50 and it'll be hunky-dory. Because that's not the answer. Because they might leave. They might die. That's not the point either. The point is you're not getting to know who and what you are. Anyhow, I'll get off my soapbox. So, when you have 2 charts that are highly incompatible, there's not much you can do about it. There's just not much you can do. You just rub each other the wrong way. You get in each other's way. You're doing things the way you like, and it's just particularly a way I don't like. Okay, it's just common. Most people are a mixture. Most people are a mixture. Liza and myself, for example, completely compatible. We just have the energies that just flow all the time. She gets out of my way, I get out of her way, we come back together, just the planets are there. Now, what is compatibility? What are these issues about codependency? The issues about codependency are the critical statement here with compatibility issues are, if I date you, this is all done unconsciously. I'll hide behind your back and you can hide behind my back and we won't talk about the elephant in each other's room. Shh, okay, and I won't talk about yours. Shh, and everything will be fine. Except it won't be fine because the elephant's in the room and it's going to be focused on at some time, and then you get mad because the person that was making you feel special, all of a sudden your source of specialness has changed. Now, of course, you're going to get mad. So that's why the Course is so heavily against specialness and what it calls a holy relationship, which is nothing more than going to God together, holding hands, and you're marching along together because you help each other. Okay? So, where does that leave you guys, you listeners on YouTube? You're going to need a really good professional astrologer if you're interested in synastry. You pick up books and it says this Venus is trine to Mars and Saturn is square to your Jupiter. That's not going to help you because you don't know how to weight it all together. An experienced astrologer can look and really balance the chart. See, I know there's some problems here, but there's some problems here. But wow, look at this. For example, there might be two people. One's a Pisces. Let's say the other one's a Leo. It's not a good combination because every fifth sign is not compatible. Let me show you. Every fifth sign. This sign is not compatible with that one or that one. The one's next door to the opposition. Aries to Scorpio or Virgo. Or Cancer to Sag or Cancer to Aquarius. They're not compatible. Okay? Let's say you're dealing with a Leo and a Pisces. But the Leo person has Neptune rising. All of a sudden, your Leo is very Piscean. The Leo has Neptune at the midheaven. Planets on the angles are a big deal. Another example. Well, I'm a Capricorn, I'm dating a Sag. That's one of the worst mixtures in the zodiac because the Capricorns are so responsible. But I'm dating this Sag, and she has Saturn at the nadir, or she has Saturn at the top, or she has Sun next to Saturn. You see? This is why you need an advanced astrologer. She has Saturnian energies. She's not going to balk at responsibilities like some Sagittarius might. Okay? That's why you see one Gemini, and they can be very deep like Bill Moyers, and you can have another one that can't even write his name, like Donald Trump. Oh, yes, he can. He can draw the little thing because he wants to show off how pretty his signature is and show you all. See? But both Geminis. But Bill Moyer's chart, I'm sure he's got a very powerful Pluto, and he's very sensitive. He must have serious, strong Piscean energy. That comes to us from where the planet is placed in the chart. So, you pick up energies in a chart by where you're. Remember, each planet you got is in a sign. It's also in a house. It may be near an angle, and it's having aspects with other planets. So I've seen people have charts that are so powerful. Now it's leading us towards the next element here, which is called midpoint charts. Midpoint charts. So I put the two charts together, and I find your sun and my sun, and I find the midpoint and put the sun there. I find your Mars and my Mars, and I put the Mars there. We end up with a whole new chart of mythical points, which are midpoints. And I've done tens of thousands of these, and they're somewhat bankable and somewhat not trustable. You got to be very careful with them. But these compatibility charts will give you the essence of why Lennon and McCartney are the way they are. Why any pairing is the way they are. Because it's the chart of the dyad. It's not the chart of the two people. It's the chart of the combination of the two people. It largely shows you what they have, why they're together. Now, I've gone further with this. I have taken, as you know, I work a lot with harmonics. I've worked a lot with my past lives, other people's past lives. I've worked a lot with taking the midpoints between my past life and your past life. Wow, is that interesting? And it really shows me what I believe after a lot of testing. It shows me what you two did together in past lives. And it doesn't mean you were male and female then. You could have been brother and sister. You could have been two sisters. Who knows? So it's there. But one of the top heavy reasons to remember from this discussion is don't jump to conclusions. If you see this and you see that, don't jump. I mean, so many people say to me, oh, I've got Saturn here and it's going to return and okay. Everybody that's ever lived past 28 has had it. Yeah. I mean, don't freak out. Okay, and that's why it's so challenging to be an astrologer amongst so few. There are just so few good astrologers in the world. They're out there and they're becoming more plentiful, mainly because they're smarter and they've been reading a lot of Jung and they're understanding archetypes. That's what's changing it. What got us to this point is I'm a Leo, I'm a Capricorn, ego. I got a nose, you got a nose. Everybody hangs on to their sun sign. That's what's kept it alive all these years. Then what kept it alive was, oh, when am I going to meet Mr. Charming? And the book says Love Signs by Linda Goodman. I'm going to read Love Signs. It's going to tell me who's my perfect match. That kept us going for a while. Okay? But then people got smarter. And they're seeing, what you're really seeing now is you're not a sun sign. You're not a sun sign. A sun sign is like I'm driving a Chevy, you're driving a Ford. But look at the differences that we can have. Okay? We're going to open it up to questions here in just a second. But don't jump to conclusions. Do your work. Pay a lot of attention on matching your 5 personal planets to their 5 personal planets. Because if your Venuses are square and your Marses are square, good luck with a healthy sex life. Good luck. The Venus and Mars have a lot to do with your sex life because it shows how, it's not just sex, it's how you want to be treated intimately. Okay? The Mercuries are really important. If your Mercuries are trying to each other, you could talk all night and be in harmony. Very important. Another thing that's really important that's not given enough credit is you got to focus on the orb. When they're really close, it's a big deal. If Dr. Kim and I have Mars square to each other by 5 degrees, all right, we're going to kind of get out of each other's way a little bit, but we're not real happy about the way each other does things. Linda and I have Mars square by 0 degrees. It's like I got to shut my mouth while she's doing something and vice versa. The zodiac is exquisite. That's what's meant by exquisite. It's just got unbelievable intelligence within it, the way it's designed. That's what's meant by that. Not a pretty word. It's just so unbelievably interwoven with intelligence. Okay, we're gonna say goodbye to our 1-hour YouTubers. Thank you for joining us every Thursday at 8 o'clock, and we're going to talk a little more intimately after this. And if you'd like to join us any Thursday, you can by just go to Google, put in Astrology Unplugged, and you'll get the link to join us 8 p.m. on Thursday. Thank you for being with us.